It is week 18, always a crazy, impossible week in the NFL. But we're going to do our best to break it down, figure it out for you. All coming up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Happy Friday morning, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the Friday DFS version. I am Scott Jenstad, joined as always on Fridays by Ryan Belongia. If you could please rate and review the podcast, it does help us out a lot if you enjoyed listening to us this year. We've reached week 18, which is always a really hard week in the NFL for a lot of reasons, which we will break down here. But more importantly, Ryan, happy holidays, happy New Year. How's everything with you?
Yeah, everything's good with me. Happy holidays to you as well. We missed you last week, but Nick filled in and did a nice job.
Nice.
This week, I don't know, usually I like these weeks because, there's some edge if you're willing to do the work and figure out the motivation and who's going to play for how long and, which backups do you want to play? So this week's similar, but, I think we still have a lot of news to wait on. Maybe not a lot of news, but some significant stuff. So I don't know. It'll be tough to give some, I guess, definitive takes, but I don't know. I have some ideas. What about you?
Yeah, and it's weird because about halfway through last week, it didn't look like this week was going to be that bad. And then all of a sudden, Philly lost. So the Niners didn't have to play for it, and neither does really Philly if Dallas is winning. And we'll go through each game. But then the Rams got in because Seattle lost, and you just all these things these teams. We didn't think as many teams were going to have clinched as it was, but wild that neither South division has been clinched yet. It's just weird that that both South divisions are so bad. It's just you look at the top teams in each division, none of them come in conference. Each name comes to the South. It's just kind of weird that both Souths are bad at the same time. But it's the most unique week of the season. I think that week one's always tough because we just don't know a lot of things. But this is a week where, and it's not just guys sitting. Those are easy. Brock Purdy and Mahomes and Matthew Stafford are sitting. That's easy. We talk about, do we play the backups? Do we not? It's just the guys, it's the teams that, maybe guys play a quarter and then leave, or, good teams that have clinching to play guys. It sounds like Debo and Brandon Ayuk going to play for the Niners, but they're not going to play very long. Kyle's not going to leave them in very long without Brock, without CMC, without Trent, all that kind of stuff. But then you get teams that, if they get way up, they're going to sit guys. Usually we talk about blowouts, but Dallas this week, if they get way up, they're going to sit guys. In a normal week, they get way up and maybe they run the ball a little bit, but guys are still in. Guys can still make plays, but if Dallas is up, 28-3 at halftime, everybody's coming out. So, and if that happens, then everybody in Philly's coming out because they know that their game means nothing. So you get games that affect other ones. It's just wild. And then you get teams that don't have anything to play for that, maybe you just don't want to sit guys. Or the real problem is if you get one tweak, if Jamar Chase tweaks his foot, he's not coming back in the game. It's just one of those things. So it's there's a lot of different levels, but further than just this guy's sitting, don't play him.
Yeah, and I guess some of it ends up being a guessing game.
Yeah.
I counted 8 out of 26 teams that have real motivation that are going to be playing to win and should play their starters most of the game. But one of those teams is Dallas, and you mentioned there's some risk there.
Yep.
But they still look like one of the better spots. Teams I didn't include. You mentioned the Eagles. What do you do with the Eagles? What do you do with a team like the Lions, who don't really have much? They're kind of in that gray area. So yeah, I'm going to try to focus on teams that are playing for something. I'm sure that's what most people will do, but I don't know. I guess I don't know any other way to do it.
Yeah. So we got 13 games on the slate, 6 early, 7 late. Probably the biggest late window we have of the year because they were trying to get teams that affect each other play at the same time as best they can. Off slate, we've got 2 Saturday games, Pittsburgh and Baltimore on Saturday. Baltimore sitting all their starters. Texans at the Colts on Saturday, and then Bills-Dolphins, the big game of the week, winner wins the AFC East. That's Sunday night. So those will be off the slate. And I wish Bills-Dolphins on a slate. It'd be a fun little add in there, but those will be off. So let's go through the games as we're doing them before we get to players. We'll talk about what teams are playing for. I have them broken down by high totals, and when I say high totals, we're different than it used to be. I think we've kind of addressed that. I have high totals now over 45. That used to be over 50. I've changed that. Medium totals 440 and 50, and then low totals under 40 We have a game that's almost under 30 this week. It's pretty wild. But there's 3 games that are 45 and over. Run through those 3 first here. Seahawks at Cardinals, 47.5. Seahawks need a win and a Green Bay loss to make the wild card. The Cardinals are obviously long out. Vikings at Lions, 45.5. You mentioned the Lions are tough to figure out. They can get a 2 seed with a win, but Dallas and Philly both have to lose, which is both big favorites. They're on the road, but both big favorites. They play before Dallas and Philly. They play before those 2 teams do, so at least they won't know what happens there. So if they want to go for it, it's not like Dallas and Philly being way up at halftime can mess them up. Vikings in that game can make the playoffs with a win, but they need Seattle and Green Bay to lose and one of Tampa Bay and New Orleans to lose. So it's kind of a tough road there. But you figure the Vikings will be playing their guys. And then Cowboys Commanders is 45.5. Cowboys win, and they win the NFC East and the 2 seed. So big motivation there until they can call off the dogs. And then the Commanders, they do have something to play for. They lock up the 2 pick with a loss. So maybe on the opposite side, maybe Washington does not want to win this week because 2 pick matters this year. There's probably 2 top quarterbacks, although Michael Penix maybe thinks there should be 3. Jaden Daniels maybe thinks there should be 3. So who knows what happens in combine and workouts and stuff. But the 2 pick matters this year. Those 3 games. Do you have a favorite? Do you have one you're gonna be stacking? How do you kind of feel about these high total games?
I think they all have merit. I kind of like, at first glance, I like the Seahawks Cardinals game. I still do. I mean, the Seahawks have everything to play for. It's got the highest total. It's most likely to stay competitive. I mean, we've been targeting the Cardinals games all season. Their defense isn't very good. So I like that game. I like some players in that game. DK Metcalf isn't going to be very popular. It seems like, pretty good slate to take.
I like to hear that. That's probably my favorite stack is Geno, DK, and James Conner.
Okay, nice. So we're on the same page here. Yeah, there's good plays on the Arizona side. You mentioned Conner. You can play McBride. You can even maybe take a chance on a receiver if you want. Kenneth Walker looks pretty good too. So yeah, I like that game. I like the Cowboys game too, though. I mean, they just have sort of the top players at every position, at least from a ceiling standpoint. I'm putting Dak in there over Hurts just because I don't know about Philly. I think they could rest some guys down the stretch. And CeeDee Lamb, obviously, probably going to be the most popular receiver, at least one of them, because you're going to be able to afford him because it's going to end up being a lot of value at running back and receiver. Yeah. I think people are just going to jam CD in there. But running it back, Cowboys will be popular, I think. So running it back with Washington is a way to get different. Don't mind taking another chance on McLaurin. He's been better lately. He has he has one incentive I saw. At least he needs 55 or 60 receiving yards or something like that, which is
the incentives are a whole nother level to this week too, right? You got some people 3 catches gets them a bunch of money, 50 yards. Those are tough too. I see people betting the over unders on those. I promise you, sportsbook know those too. So the adjusted lines, but yeah, those things we saw it. It was a couple years ago where I think Gronk was $1 million for another catch, and they put him back in the game for that, and they threw the first pass. You get little things like that. Austin Eckler needs 115 yards. I don't know if I'm betting on that. You get numbers that are so high. There's there's a couple CeeDee Lamb numbers where he can he can pass Tyreek and that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. It's the thing with the Cowboys in this game is that if they get way up, it's because they put a bunch of stats up too. So if I always say if they're 20-3, they could bench everybody, but they got to 28 to start with. So CD can score twice or whatever it is. So yeah, I get the Cowboys. The theory is I don't think Washington pushed them enough to make this a true shootout, but maybe they blow out so much early that they kind of put up a bunch of stats in the first half.
Yeah, and there doesn't seem there's not as many true ceilings on this slate as we're used to. We just don't have expensive quarterbacks to play. I mean, yeah, Hurts is there. I guess it's possible for Hurts too, but still, no McCaffrey, no real receivers besides CD and Jefferson. The Lions, I guess. I was going to ask you. So, are the Lions just full go then with playing before the Cowboys and before the Eagles, and Dan Campbell's their coach? I don't know.
And the Dan Campbell's their coach is the most important part of the thing. You can tell he's I'm not sitting guys. I'm going for, I don't believe it. I think that the odds that Dallas and Philly both lose are so long. I think he plays guys for a bit. I think maybe it's like a half and get guys out. But like if Goff and Amon are out there in the fourth quarter, like that doesn't make any sense to me. I get it. It's a football game. You want to try and win it. Once you get on the field, guys will try and win it. But man, I'm not risking it. Playing the next week too. Like you're going to play. There's a good chance you play the Rams the next week. Like that's a legit round one game. It's not like, teams are hoping you get Seattle or one of those teams, but like if you get the Rams, I think that's a spot where you can't afford anybody out. Maybe Dan Campbell's just that guy that wants to win no matter what, but man, I think he sits guys in the second half.
I tend to agree. So just to touch back on the Seattle game, there's not much for incentives this week. I mean, you mentioned like sometimes you'll get one or two where, they're really going to try for that one. But Geno Smith makes $2 million if they make the playoffs. So I mean, not like they really needed extra motivation, but that's pretty good.
That's a big one. Jeez,
that's a big one. Yeah. Baker Mayfield has a similar one. They're playing for something too. But just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Geno wants to make the playoffs either way, but a little boost never hurt anybody.
Yeah, that's not like $250K,
right?
Which is still nice, but $2 million.
Yeah, $2 million is like no matter how much money you make, $2 million is $2 million. Like the guys care about cashing that check for sure.
Yeah.
The game's in the middle range here. I'm gonna go like 40 to 45. We've got Bears Packers 43.5. Big game for your Green Bay Packers. I think that you get pretty fired up about their win on Sunday night. Jordan Love looked awesome and has looked awesome in the second half of the season. He has the third most touchdown passes in the NFL at 30, and he's going to pass Brock. Brock's one ahead of him. Brock's not playing. Dak's only 2 ahead of him. Like Jordan Love has a chance to lead the NFL in touchdown passes, which I think if I told you that in week 6, you probably would have just logged off the podcast and told me that you didn't want to do it anymore because I was crazy. But Packers are winning in. They get the wild card win in. They can also lose and get in, but like a bunch of teams have to lose, and that's probably not likely. They're a winning in. They need to win. The Bears are out, but I think the Bears would love to play spoiler in this game. Big rivalry. Aaron Rodgers has talked a lot of crap about the Bears for a lot of years. I think they'd love to knock them out of the playoffs, and they already have the number 1 pick. So like that pick motivation's gone. Like they don't care about that. I don't think they care if they go down a couple picks with their other pick. They obviously have Carolina's pick, so they're picking number 1 overall. We've got Eagles Giants is 42.5. Giants are obviously out. Eagles are win and a Cowboys loss for the NFC East. We talked about that before. Obviously, the Cowboys are a big favorite. Falcons Saints 41.5. Both teams playing with some motivation here. Saints need a win and a Tampa Bay loss to win the NFC South. They can also win and have a couple teams lose, Green Bay and Seattle, to make a wild card spot. So they're definitely playing hard. Falcons need a win and a Tampa Bay loss. Tampa Bay's playing Carolina for the division also. And then that's 41.5. Then 40.5, we have the Rams-Niners. Both teams have already said they're benching guys. Both quarterbacks are sitting. The Niners are locked into the 1 seed. Love to hear that. Rams, I think I'm a little surprised they're not playing everybody because I think the 6 seed and 7 seed actually matters this year. To me, I'd much rather go to Detroit than go to Dallas just because Dallas is so good at home. But I get it. If you don't have Stafford or Kyron or Aaron Donald, you're not going to beat any of those teams. So they're sitting everybody. I imagine they will try and win just with their backup players. But I think they're going to play hard and try and win. Any of these middle games that you really find yourself liking more than maybe the other ones in the group?
Yeah, it's interesting. The Saints-Falcons matchup is interesting just because both teams, can still make the playoffs. I just find that game so tough to stack. But, if somebody wanted to, I actually think it's a pretty good option because I don't think too many people are going to. But, I like some pieces from that game. And then same with Tampa. They have a lot to play for. It's a low total, though, and these Panthers haven't really been a good team to stack against, but maybe you can pick like one player on each side, mini stacks from that game. 49ers Rams might get some popular value plays from that game. So I think people might end up being on that game. Like, is Elijah Mitchell going to play?
He has an illness. So I think that probably, but like, he's a guy that, if you want him healthy, like anytime he runs the ball, he's at risk of getting hurt. Like he's one of those guys that's always injured. If I were them, I wouldn't play him more than the first quarter either way. But especially with Christian McCaffrey, had that the calf thing. He said he's fine, but like a little bit of a tweak. Man, if I were them, I'd just feed Jordan Mason all day.
Yeah, so I agree, and I think a lot of people will see it that way. So I think Jordan Mason will end up being like a pretty popular value play.
Yeah.
Even Rivers for 4K starting for the Rams on the other side. Carson Wentz is 4.5K. They have a min price tight end, Davis Allen, I think his name is. He actually looked pretty good with Higbee out. So yeah, some pieces from that game I could see. I don't know. What about you?
There's going to be some no-name guys who go off this weekend. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of trying to pick them. And there's going to be 30 no-name guys who don't go off. So, like, there's always that the other side of that. I jumped off for 5 seconds. I was grabbing something. But did you talk about Bears-Packers? Do you like that as a
no.
Okay.
I didn't touch on Bears-Packers. Yeah, no, I think that's probably one of the better games to take a chance on stacking.
Do you agree with me that the Bears are really going to go all out to win this game? Like, this is going to be a regular game for the Bears?
Yes, I do. Yeah. They've been playing well lately. They have momentum. Fields has been playing well. He wants to play well, especially in the last game with all the talk about, picking a quarterback over him and what's going to happen there. I think they just said the coach is coming back. So, yeah, I mean, of course they want to spoil the Packers season here.
Yeah.
And yeah, then on the Packers side, obviously they have everything to play for. And I think there's some interesting pieces there that aren't going to be that popular. Like I have some interest in Aaron Jones, and he's not really going to be popular at all with just the other running backs that are priced around him and some of the cheaper guys that are going to be the really popular value. Jaden Reed's interesting. Jordan Love's interesting. So I think that game is good to stack because I don't think it's going to be too popular either.
Do we know, have you looked what the weather looks like in Green Bay this time of year?
Yeah, it's going to be cold.
Cold is fine. Windy and snowing, not so fine, but cold is all right.
Yeah, I think just cold. I'll have a look right now, but
Just put your arm outside. How close are you to Green Bay?
About an hour and a half drive.
Yeah, that's close enough. I trust your weather deciding right there.
Yeah, no, weather's all good there. Don't really see, just now that we're looking at it, this Jets New England game.
No, we're gonna have weather. What are we gonna do with that?
Cold, windy, and probably snow. Gusts up to 30, 35. Not a good spot for the offenses.
There goes the Bailey Zappi 450-yard passing game I have projected. That's a good segue into the lower total games. I'm going to hit these real quick before we get some players. We got Jags Titans 39.5. Jags motivated, Titans not. Broncos Raiders 38.5. Both teams out. Bucks Panthers 37.5. Obviously Bucks need a win to win the NFC South. Panthers long out. Browns Bengals 37.5. Browns are benching Joe Flacco. Did you ever think we get to a point in 2023 where Joe Flacco was getting benched as a starter because they had clinched a playoff spot? Yeah, if you say yes to that, you are a liar. Locked in the 5 seed. Bengals are obviously out. Chiefs Chargers 35.5. Chiefs are locked in the 3 seed, sitting Patrick Mahomes. I imagine many others. Travis Kelce has an incentive. I think he needs like 18 yards to get to 1,000 or whatever it is. There's something there. I think he's going to be quick play, first drive and out. Chargers obviously out of the playoffs. And then Jets Patriots, you mentioned, sounds like bad weather. The total is 30.5. Jets and Pats obviously both out. There's a piece in that game that needs to be really popular. We'll get to in a second. But I assume none of these games you're super fired up about, like them going way over the total or anything.
No.
Yeah. Like pieces here and there, but nobody you're like, I think this game's way underpriced or something like that.
Well, the Jags you mentioned have all the motivation.
Yeah.
So is Christian Kirk going to play? Because, DraftKings has priced him at 3,000. And he returned to practice the last couple days.
You're right, because he was. I mean, there was a lot of talk he was just done for the year.
Wow, yeah,
why would they put him at 3,000?
Yeah, so I think they just thought he was done for the year. Like he wasn't supposed to come back, but they opened his window. He practiced yesterday and the day before. So I mean, he seems to be trending towards playing. I haven't heard anything, but he's 3,000. So I would assume he'd be pretty popular.
Yeah, what I read, I think to open the window, my guess is he's not going to play, but yeah, okay. You're right. I mean, that's if he gets to 3,000 and he's like active, I think that's like the biggest slam dunk of the week, right?
Yeah, but maybe he doesn't play. But like you said, I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe I'm too optimistic.
No, they called him day to day. He said it's a long process in a short period of time. We'll have to see what's at the end of the week. My guess would be no, but that's one you better check Sunday and get reports because 3,000. Like he's active. You're just playing him, right?
Right. Like even if he's going to play half the snaps, I don't know. He's 3,000. So just something to keep an eye on.
6 targets for Christian Kirk at 3,000. It's like the biggest slam dunk of the week.
Right. In a pretty good matchup where they need to win.
That's weird. Why wouldn't you just leave him at 5,000 and in case he plays? So that you just no. That's a good call there. I do like some Jaguar pieces too. But let's get into players. First, a note from our sponsors at Smash Up Fantasy Sports. Are you one of the many fans who are not ready for the fantasy season to end? Then you have to play Smash Up Fantasy Sports, the fastest growing free game. In Smash Up, your traditional fantasy team gets supercharged by Smash cards, which are like video game power-ups that you pick to boost the scores of your players or even your entire team. Think your kicker is going to have a big game? Then choose a card like Big Kick Energy to power them up. Are you starting Justin Fields? Then play Scramble Spikes to score more from his running. Paired with the cool video game-like visuals, Smash Up is the biggest innovation in fantasy sports in a very long time and really feels like it was designed for sports fans. And here's the best part. You can play for free and win fantastic prizes. No credit card needed. No hidden fees. All users receive 3 entries per week, but with our code RotoWire, you'll unlock a 4th entry every week through the Super Bowl. If you use our promo code or join the group RotoWire from your profile, you can play against us in a private tournament for a chance to win a free RotoWire fantasy football subscription. Enter now at smashupsports.com and join the future of fantasy sports. I have played around with the site a little bit. Does seem really fun. So definitely click that one. That's smashupfantasysports.com. Let's jump into quarterbacks. We talked a little bit about Geno Smith. I like that one, but tell me who you're playing this week. I kind of see it as like Fields, Love, Geno, or Dak among the like name bigger, more expensive guys, and then kind of punt down if you want someone cheap. But tell me how you feel about quarterback because I could see it going a lot of different ways this week.
Yeah, I think I feel similar to you, the guys you named. I'll start for cash games. For cash games, I think there are 2 that are going to be the most popular. Geno Smith, you mentioned, 6,100. We talked about him a little bit. And Nick Mullins, 5,100. Right. Vikings needing to win. People like playing Mullins, and he hasn't let anybody down yet. Yeah. So I think this is a pretty good spot. If you wanted to pay up, I could throw in some more guys. Dak is in play. If you end up getting crazy value like Christian Kirk and other guys, you could see just going up to Dak in cash just because you can. You can also play Fields, Jordan Love. I think those are the guys I'm looking at mostly.
Let's talk about the Green Bay Chicago game then. You mentioned Fields and Love. Fields has been balling. He's been quarterback 3 last week, and he's been top 5 3 of the last 4 weeks, which is wild. He doesn't have multiple touchdown passes in a game since week 5. It's wild what he's done. But those rush yards are such a nice floor. He's over 40 yards in 5 of 6. He's scored in the last 3 of the last 4. He has struggled against Green Bay in the past. I think he's 0-5 against them. So that, they seem like they play him smartly, kind of passively. They just kind of lay back and keep him in the pocket, kind of like the Niners did with Jalen Hurts a couple weeks ago. Like, all right, just sit there and beat us. And, Fields has showed he could do that a little bit more than I think we thought, but they do tend to play him pretty smart. And then Love, awesome game on Sunday night. He was so good. 3 touchdowns and a rush TD. I actually had a league where I needed him to 20-something points to win, and he got there easily, which it was nice to have that on Sunday night on New Year's Eve. 9 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. He's a top 12 quarterback in 6 of the last 7 games. Multiple touchdowns in 7 to 8. The stats just kind of rack up. I mentioned he's almost leading the league in touchdown passes. Bears D's been pretty good in the second half. They're a different team in the second half that you mentioned. They've been playing well. Do you have a preference between the two? How do you feel about Fields versus Love?
Yeah, my preference would probably be Fields. It's tough to know who to stack him with, though. You mentioned Moore's struggles. I'm not sure I'd want to stack him with Moore. I put a little stock into Jair Alexander finally coming back in healthy. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a real big fan of this guy, but when he's healthy, he's still one of the better cornerbacks in the league.
You don't like the taking the initiative and going to call the coin toss?
I don't know. I didn't like
that. Was one of the weirder stories of the whole year. That was
that very weird. And then just obviously his interviewer, his afterward was weird as well.
It was.
I don't know. And DJ Moore up to 7K now. I do like Fields though. And I would. So then my next instinct would be to pair him with Kmet. But that knee injury worries me a little. I mean, he was active last week and barely played, didn't see a target. So that's kind of a tough click too. On the other side, Jordan Love, I'm not sure, I've flipped on a guy more so than Jordan Love. The start of the season, after 6-7 weeks or so, he looked like he was clearly not the guy. I mean, I was just pretty much done with him. And then he's looked great. Yeah, he looks like the guy, who for sure has a future. And
that ball, that post to Jaden Reed last week was sweet.
Yeah, so that was sweet. So it's been very impressive to see. So I just as a Packer fan, maybe I would take a chance on Love before Fields. I think they're both good plays, though.
Are they going to win this week? That didn't sound confident.
So I think so, but
you sound like me. You sound like me every time the Warriors have a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter. Yeah,
part of it is that I like the Bears. I've been on the Bears recently. I'm a Fields guy, so I like the Packers, but I like the Bears too. I think it's a tough game.
I think it's the best game to watch aside from Bills Dolphins on Sunday. I think it's gonna be a really fun game to watch.
Me too. Yeah, I can't wait.
We mentioned Geno, top 15 quarterback the last 3 weeks, really playing well. I think the question here is, can Arizona push them a little bit? I think we would have said no a while ago, but you look at Arizona, they ran the ball really well against the 49ers. And that game against the Eagles, I was watching the game with some friends. I'm like, dude, the Cardinals are killing the Eagles right now. They're like, what do you mean? It's the 21-6 or whatever it was. I'm like, yeah, well, Kyler threw 100-yard pick six, but you look at the stats, you look at the time of possession, you look at the yards, Philly couldn't stop them. And at the end of the game, they needed to get a stop, couldn't get a stop. Arizona offense is playing a little bit right now. So I think they can push Geno and the Seahawks a little bit. Arizona can't pressure the quarterback, which is the key with Geno. He's so much better with a clean pocket than he is under pressure. Some guys, kind of adapt well and roll out and make plays. And Geno's just a guy that likes a clean pocket. He's so much better. He's not pressured. I really like Geno this week at 61. I think it kind of the game lines up well. The opponent lines up well. I think everything's pretty – and he's got 3 good receivers. I think it lines up really well for Geno this week.
I do too. I think you broke it down perfectly. The Seahawks defense hasn't been able to get off the field either. Yeah. I do think Arizona can hang around. Seahawks defense hasn't been able to stop anybody on the ground either. They got crushed last week by the Steelers. They've given up big totals in 6 straight weeks. I think it'll end up being a good spot for Geno. Like DK Metcalf at lowish ownership.
Can you get behind Kyler Murray as a quarterback play at all based on what we're saying?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I don't think I'll do it, but I think it's fine. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the Arizona and Seattle season here with a big game from Kyler. I think that's okay. I don't think I'll get there.
They seem well coached and they play hard too, which I think matters in these week 18 things. I think that Jonathan Gannon, I think his name is, has really they're bad and they've been bad. And they've had some bad stretches, but it seems like they're playing hard. They played really hard last week against Philly. And I think he's a pretty good coach.
Yeah, I do too. I'm just thinking more about that playing Kyler. Yeah, kind of warming to it because it makes, you can play Kenneth Walker on the other side. You can stack that game either way and it works really well.
Yeah, I mean, it is the highest total game, so I think that people are going to come play with a lot of pieces in that game, but I think that it can work from either side. I tend to really like Geno, Metcalf, and James Conner coming back with, you mentioned Seattle struggles against the run. Probably my favorite stack of the week, probably with go with on my main team, but you could go the other way. I think there's going to be points in this game for sure. What about the cheap quarterbacks? We've got a lot of guys, obviously a lot of backups playing this week. We've got, Jake Browning is 5,700. Zach Taylor said that since he wants to win, I'm not sure I totally buy it. I don't know if they'll push Higgins or Jamar Chase at all this week. Tyrod is 5,300. People played him last week. He had a pretty good game. 319 yards and a touchdown against the Rams, had 40 yards rushing too, which obviously, builds the floor nicely. Maybe Eagles take the foot off the gas so that Dallas is ahead and, take some guys out. You mentioned Nick Mullins down here at 5,100. Turnover prone, but kind of who cares for our game. Throwed for 303 and 411 yards in his 2 starts. Detroit has been really bad against the pass like the last 10 weeks, like almost a 9 YPA against the pass. Easton Stick is down here against Kansas City backups. I think I'd play Mullins and Taylor before that. But do you have a favorite cheap guy? Is it Mullins?
Probably Mullins. Yeah. I mean, I know he'll be the most popular, but it just seems like the best play in the range, especially if you want to play Justin Jefferson, which I do. I wouldn't worry too much. I wouldn't worry really about the other pieces in that game. I would just want to play Mullins and Jefferson. Yeah, you can make an argument for Addison. Oh, maybe throw the tight end in there too.
Johnny Munt, right?
Yeah, Johnny Munt. I don't want to forget about him. Running it back with the Lions, though, that's tough. You mentioned we don't really know what we're going to do or what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's fine. I don't know who I would take a chance on, though. Maybe Gibbs, maybe St. Brown. Tough, though.
It is. I just it's hard to trust Gibbs, Montgomery in normal weeks. And then you get this week on top of it. And, you could see Craig Reynolds get some care. It's just, I think it's going to be a frustrating. Right. I just think that for all his talk, I think Campbell has to probably take it easy on some big name guys.
I do too. I was thinking maybe, we rest the veteran Montgomery, who we've leaned on so much, and just showcase Gibbs a little because people have been clamoring for it. But, that's wishful thinking,
Yeah.
I don't know that I would do it, but I think, Carson Wentz is 4,500 and his tight end is 2,500. So pair them with like Jordan Mason, who's 46 or whatever he is, and then
play everybody.
Just play everybody.
Yeah.
And
go Jefferson and CD.
Yeah, right, definitely. Yeah. And maybe you get a 1 yard rushing touchdown from Wentz, and then he throws one to Allen, and then your other guys go off. It's not the craziest thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, in football, it's hard. You can't, everybody's like, oh, bench everybody. You can't just basically roster size. You can only have 7 inactives. You only have 46 guys that are active. You can't bench everybody, but Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, Bosa, Hargrave, those guys aren't playing in the second half. You want to talk about Wentz and the Rams, the big name guys, Travarius Ward, the big name guys are not playing in the second half of that game.
And what about what's going to happen with Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle?
First quarter, first 20 minutes and out.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah. I see guys like Ronnie Bell. Is that his name?
Ronnie Bell.
And Chris Conley, projecting well. They're 3K, these guys. So I don't know. There's chances to take there. I think
Darnold's going to want to fling it too. I don't think Darnold's going to be in there to hand the ball off. We talk about riding Justin Mason, but I think that I think Darnold really, he's playing for a contract next year. You see guys that week 18, you do the famous Matt Flynn contract of 100 years ago. But if Sam Darnold looks really good in week 18, that actually affects what happens to him next year.
Yeah, and he actually can. He's actually capable. I mean, even when he came in the other week, he just already looked like one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league.
Man, he was just firing the ball around too.
Overthrowing
guys. All of a sudden, you're like, wow, this guy really has an arm. And we knew that, but I think you talk about personal motivation. There's no incentives there, but Sam Darnold with a game where he looks like a quarterback, actually might get signed somewhere to start next year. It is a big game for him.
Yep. So I guess, I wouldn't mind somebody playing Darnold either. It's just so tough to decide who to pair him with.
It is, and all his weapons are going to be gone in the middle, start of the second quarter, middle of second quarter. So it just
maybe you don't pair him with anybody. He throws a touchdown to each one of those guys, and they leave the game, and Darnold still smashes.
There's a chance that Juwan Jennings is back, and he's missed a couple games with concussion. Maybe they want to get him, knock the rust off a little bit so he could play a little bit. It's just really hard to predict. Lastly, before we jump off quarterbacks, Hurts and Dak. Hurts is 8,100. Dak's 8,000. I'd probably lean more Dak just by their, who they're playing against, how they've been playing. But if Washington weirdly scores a couple times and keeps Dallas in that game, Jalen Hurts at the Giants, he can always work. He always can get 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns. I think I would lean, if I'm playing an expensive guy, I think I'd lean Dak because I think that they're going to have to get up to try. They want to end that game as quickly as possible. I'd probably go Dak based on matchup, but do you have a preference between the two, or are you just not playing either one of them?
No, I have a preference. Yeah, I like Dak. I think I am going to play some Dak.
Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty confident that they're going to go hard for 3/4 for sure, or at least until they hit 35 points.
Yeah. Because NFL game, you're like up 17, you're not taking them out yet, right?
Right. And there's not a lot of guys with massive ceilings on this slate, and they could still do it in 3/4 or whatever. Maybe they get pushed. You never know. And then it'd be a great spot.
Yeah, I mean, you get a fumble 6, a pick 6, a kickoff return for a touchdown. There's a lot of ways where teams can hang in games.
Like there's going to be some low-owned Washington guys that I don't mind taking a shot on either, so that influences me. Like I think McLaurin's interesting. If Curtis Samuel missed, I would maybe take a shot on Dotson. I mean, just these guys aren't going to be played. Even like Brian Robinson, going to be like 1% owned or something. The Bills ran for 266 yards on the Cowboys. What if, Robinson scores the first touchdown of the game? Now game on,
Yeah, I think Washington's a big, check the news on Sunday. There's been some rumblings that they may sit some veteran guys too. So I want to make sure that their guys doesn't all play. As long as I see some quotes like, we're really trying to win this game, I'm good. But there have been some rumblings. I saw some stuff on Twitter yesterday about maybe Washington sits a couple of those veteran guys. It doesn't push them very hard. So I do want to check into that. But I do like those plays as long as I think that once they get in the field, I think they're going to try. They'd love to beat the Cowboys. They would love to win that game. So, but let's jump into other positions. We hit quarterback a bunch. First note from our sponsors at Circa. Get ready for the ultimate big game parties at Circa Resort and Casino. Super Sundays in Las Vegas this year. Watch the big game poolside at Stadium Swim's big game viewing party. Massive screen, booming game sound, and a view of the pyrotechnic and visual effects throughout the game. Snag the best seat in the sun with day beds, poolside boxes, cabanas, and more. Or touchdown at the world's largest sportsbook, Circa Sports, for the big game bash. 3 stories of football glory featuring a 78 million pixel screen. Book your seat with a variety of reservation options, including bottle service, open bar, stadium-style food, and more. Don't miss these legendary viewing experiences on February 11th. The big game parties only at Circa Resort and Casino. Reserve today at circalasvegas.com. So it's running backs. We mentioned there's some value here, but let's hit the expensive guys first. I think there's 3 guys in the 7,000s who people will look at. Rachaad White in a game Tampa has to win, 7,600 against at Carolina. Should be a good game script. Should be a good matchup there. Travis Etienne kind of emerged from the depths of the sea last week. Had a good game, 7,300. Trevor Lawrence likely going to play this week at Tennessee. They've got to win that game too. And then Breece Hall is the one guy from this Jets Patriots game. That game looks awful, but he's 7,200. He has 25 targets the last 2 weeks. He has 8+ targets in 5 of 6 weeks. A wild stat. New England's really tough to run the ball against, but they allow receivers to catch the ball. And man, he's like the most popular target on that team. So there's just a lot of targets, especially in DraftKings. You get full PPR. Who do you like in this range? I assume it's one of those 3 guys, but who do you find yourself playing this week?
Yeah, I think I'd probably have the most interest in Breece. Just like you mentioned, he's been catching so many passes. We just said there's going to be bad weather in that game, so you can't really see them throwing it down the field. Not like they really can anyways.
I was going to say, yeah, the quarterback limits that anyway.
Right. And I don't think Breece is going to be that popular either. So yeah, I do like him. Rachaad White just makes sense from the standpoint that Tampa need this game, and you'd expect them to get a lead and then just have White close it out. So that makes sense. Etienne, I probably won't play him. I get it, but I don't think it's the greatest matchup. I think he got lucky to get there last week. He had a long run, and I forget what else. But I don't know. That's just my lean. Breece, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'll be in this range too much as it is. I like some 6K guys and maybe even some cheaper guys. So I do, but I think that's kind of how most people are going to feel. So I don't think really any of those 7K guys get played too much, which does make them big or good tournament plays. Yeah, like I could see Rachaad White being less than 10% owned.
Wow, I love that.
Breece maybe 15 or so. So I think it makes sense to take a chance on either of those guys.
Yeah, I really like Rachaad White this week. I think I can get behind Breece too with the targets, but I just don't know if I want to even touch that game. But Rachaad White, Tampa needs to win this game. It's a good setup. They're favored. Last week was his first quiet game in a while. He had only 66 yards and he fumbled. But man, Carolina's allowed 25 touchdowns to running backs this year to lead the league. Both Green Bay and Jacksonville ran against them well. We mentioned ATN kind of rising to the depths. Like it was because he faced Carolina. Like I just think the matchup really works. 7,600 I think will scare people away. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of value at running back this week. I think Rachaad White's somebody I'm definitely going to play some of at 7,600. I think that it really works well, and the setup is just perfect. And they have to win. There's no taking him out, unless they get way, way up. But man, they're gonna do everything they can to win the division here.
Yeah, maybe running back is the place to try to separate yourself this week.
You mentioned like a lot of guys in the 6K range. We talked about James Conner. I think you like Aaron Jones. Who else do you like in here? There's a bunch of names in this range. There are the 7,000. There are not many 6,000. There's guys up and down this range. I won't read them all, but they're between 6,000 and 7,000. There's a bunch of names in here. Who do you find yourself going towards?
So I think Tony Pollard is going to be kind of popular.
I almost let off the segment with sell me on Tony Pollard.
Yeah, but I'm not really going to sell you on him actually.
Okay.
I think Rico Dowdle's back healthy now, and that just kind of throws another wrench in there. And if Pollard's going to be popular, I'll just get off of him in tournaments. He might end up being a cash play. I guess I'd be okay with that. But, there's a lot of running backs in this range. Kenneth Walker looks pretty good for 6,500. He's not going to be that popular either, I don't think. Just because there's some cheaper guys below him. He's carrying that injury. He got injured last game. So I kind of like taking a shot in tournaments on Walker. Like James Conner, I'm with you. Zamir White would project well if Jacobs is out again. Ezekiel Elliott. For 5,900 on the opposite side of that Jets Patriots game, Breece Hall game. I don't know. You can see it being a good spot for Zeke. They're just getting a lot of touches, maybe even some catches. I don't know. Does someone stand out for you in this? Oh, Aaron Jones. Yeah. So I don't think anybody's going to play Aaron Jones because they're just going to play all the guys I mentioned above and below him. So for that reason, I'm kind of interested in taking a chance on him. I shouldn't say nobody's going to play him, but he's going to be like 10% owned probably. And AJ Dillon's banged up. It's the first time in a while that Aaron Jones doesn't carry an injury designation. Biggest game of the season for the Packers. I mean, if things go the Packers' way, Aaron Jones will get a lot of touches. I mean, that's what they want to do.
The Tony Pollard thing's the hardest part for me in this range. Like, he's just not been good. He has 100-yard game in the last 10 games, but it was against Washington, who they play this week. So I guess there's that. I obviously watched the game last week. The Niners Washington can't stop the run. Like they brought in Elijah Mitchell and he was like 6 yards a carry. Like every play was 6-7 yards. You hope they stay close because I think that if they get up, like they're just gonna. There's no like run out the fourth quarter with Tony Pollard. I think they would take him out if they're way up. But you could just see a week where Tony Pollard goes off and everybody in season-long leagues is frustrated because it doesn't matter this week because obviously season-long leagues are over. But you could see that it's just strictly a random narrative, but you could just see that happening where everybody's like, oh my God, finally Tony Pollard has 160 yards and 2 touchdowns when I can't play him. But kind of same with Bijan Robinson. He's 6,600. Fewer than 20 touches the last 4 games. I'm just tired of, I don't want to watch Arthur Smith. I don't want to deal with it. I think I'll stay away there. Tyler Algier had 2 long touchdowns the last couple of weeks. So same with Saquon. Like I think the touches will be there. I think the Giants will want to, he still had 88% of the running back touches last week, even though they're done, but like, I don't know if I want to mess with that spot either, 6,900. So I think I agree with you. I think that Pollard and Walker, I like Aaron Jones too. So Chicago's good against the run, but I think that, AJ Dillon, like you mentioned, banged up. Jones has 120 plus rushing yards each last 2 weeks. I think he's really coming on strong. And then I love Connor. I mean, 4 straight top 12 running backs weeks. Seattle's brutal against the run, 5 yards a carry the last 6 weeks. That Tony Pollard or James Conner has over 100 yards in 3 of 4. He's 5th in the NFL in yards per carry. So it's not like he's just getting the ball 30 times. Like he's actually he's a bunch of 10-yard runs, double-digit yard runs. He's looked really good. Like then it's the Niners. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like old school James Conner. Then you mentioned Zamir White. I don't think Jacobs is going to play. I don't know why they'd play him. I know he wants to play. I know the Raiders trying to be tough and want to get Antonio Pierce that job, but it'd be weird to me if he didn't practice all week and then suddenly played. So that works because the Denver run D is brutal also.
Yeah, I talked my friend out of playing James Conner last week. Sort of chastised him for considering it. And
are you guys still friends?
Yeah. Connor's looked great, though. It was a sweet one-handed catch, too.
Yeah, that was.
What I had said was I was worried because he'd been playing less snaps and they'd been taking him out on passing downs. But, yeah, no, I'm not too worried about Connor anymore. Like 20-plus fantasy points in 3 of the last 4. And he's, one of those, he wants to end the season on a high. A veteran like that who was injured at the start of the season. He's got some momentum going. It's a good spot against Seattle. Their run defense hasn't been able to stop anybody. So, yeah, I really like Connor here.
Yeah, and he's I guess he's signed for 1 more year, but they have I think there's an opt-out contract. So I don't think Seattle cares about using him or saving him or resting him or anything. They're just going to play him.
Yeah, I think so too.
You mentioned value at running back. Tell me who you like down here. Let's go on in the 5s and even the 4s this week. Where do you find yourself going with this? There's a lot of names you could find yourself playing.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to wait on some news. Is Jerome Ford gonna play?
I don't know why they would risk him more than a few plays.
I don't either.
You're looking at Pierre Strong.
Yeah, I think watch for Ford to maybe even get ruled out at some point before the game, and Kareem Hunt is injured and a veteran. They're going to rest him pretty much anyways. Pierre Strong at 4K. Yeah, I think he would emerge as a really popular play. You probably play him in cash games for sure. Jordan Mason just above that, we've talked about for 4,600. I think that's going to be a popular spot for value. If we got any kind of news on Eli Mitchell, any kind of news that he wasn't going to play much or not even going to play, then Mason would end up being the most popular running back on the slate. And then Ronnie Rivers, I guess, is 4K in that same game, probably going to get most of the work for the Rams. That seems okay. I don't know. Did I miss anyone? Those 3 guys sort of stood out the most right now.
I think the other one is there's actually 2. There's one, we mentioned that we think Kenneth Walker is going to play. If he doesn't, Zach Charbonnet would definitely be a play at 5,000. I think that kind of goes into pretty much if he's out, I think you play Charbonnet pretty easily in that game, especially against Arizona. So that becomes, but I think Walker's going to play. The other one for me, if Alvin Kamara sits, I think they're going to, he's obviously, that's a big game for the Saints. He's obviously trying to play, but if he sits, Jamal Williams had 23 touches last week. Atlanta allowed 0 rush touchdowns the first 14 weeks. We talked about that a lot, but they have 3 the last 2 games. Bears running backs had 145 yards last week. I think Jamal Williams, the ghost of, he's going to get goal line carries if he's in there. It was weird. Once Kamara got hurt, what's his name? I can't think of what. I'm blanking. What's the tight end's name that plays?
Juwan Johnson.
No, the backup tight end.
Taysom Hill.
There you go. Taysom Hill only had, I think only had 2 carries after Kamara left. It was very weird that you're oh, Kamara's hurt. It's going to be Taysom Hill all the time, and he really wasn't. He played kind of his normal, every once in a while here. But they gave Jamal Williams 23 touches. I think that Kamara and Kenneth Walker are news stories. If they sit, I think both those guys become plays pretty quick. If not, I think everybody will go down to Mason. You mentioned Ronnie Rivers. Kyron's not playing. The Niners aren't going to play their guys up front. I think they could, for 4,000, a starting running back always can work.
Yeah, a starting running back for 4,000 against mostly backups, probably for at least half the game. Seems fine.
Yeah, I think so too. So there's certainly some news there, but like you said, there's a lot of choices. There's a lot of choices in the low 6s, a choice in the 5s. You could even play Chuba Hubbard if you wanted to. I worry there because they're probably gonna be trailing Tampa Bay. He only had 11 carries last week. Maybe he's wearing down a little bit. I probably would like some of these other guys more if the injury situation work themselves out.
Yeah, I worry about that one too. Yeah. We wouldn't be surprised to see Miles Sanders get a little more involved.
Yeah. Let's jump into receivers. First note from our sponsor that Odds Are. Are you ready to revolutionize your sports betting approach? Begin with a 2-week free trial at oddsr.com. That's ODDSR.com, where cutting-edge AI technology sharpens your edge in the betting game. Benefit from our proven 2-year track record, boosting a 60% accuracy rate and an impressive 10% ROI. The Odds Are AI meticulously sifts through extensive data to reveal high-value green value plays, guiding you towards smarter betting decisions. And it's just about the numbers. The Odds Are app is exceptionally user-friendly, crafted to be your go-to betting advisor right at your fingertips. Jumpstart your journey to betting smarter and more successfully. Simply visit the iOS or Google Play Store, download the Odds Are app, and step into a world of confident betting. Your path to a more strategic betting experience starts with a 2-week free trial. Download today, where smart strategy triumphs over luck. So it's weird in a week where we have a lot of running back value. We don't have a lot of high quarterbacks. There are a lot of expensive receivers this week. CeeDee Lamb's 9,300, AJ Brown 87, Amon-Ra 86, Justin Jefferson 85, Devontae Adams off a huge game of 700, and they got some other guys in the low 70. You got Mike Evans, Jamar Chase, DJ Moore, Metcalf. There's a lot of receivers, a lot of big name guys this week. I think your answer is going to be Justin Jefferson, but who the heck are you playing in this? Let's go over 8,000 first.
Yeah, definitely playing Jefferson.
Me too.
So that's a
Nick Mullins likes to throw it to Jefferson.
Yes, and Hawkinson's out, and it's just not much of a running game. Yeah, it looks like a great spot for Jefferson. So really like him. Really like CeeDee Lamb. I think that's how most people will think, which I think makes AJ Brown an interesting tournament play. He hasn't done it in a while, but he can smash in 3 quarters. We've seen him do it a bunch of times.
And Devontae Smith hasn't practiced yet too. Like he might be the only big guy out there.
Right. Yeah. Devontae Smith was in a boot or something after the game and hasn't practiced yet. Yeah, Devontae Adams, I don't know. Coming off that massive game, I don't know. I want to get your take on Devontae. Sometimes I don't play number 1 receivers against the Broncos, but I'm not too committed to that. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's one of those things that you play in a tournament. The target rates are elite almost all the time, but it's just so up and down with O'Connell. Like he's either really good or like doesn't do anything. It's so hard to predict. I mean, last week had 17 targets, 13 for 126 and 2 touchdowns. I think that they would, like I mentioned before with Jacobs, I think they want to play for Antonio Pierce. I think they want to win this game. I think they want him to get hired. Devontae Adams came out and said it this week at his press conference. I just think, and he gets very, there's a low floor and a high ceiling with Adams. I think he's just kind of a boomer Gus guy with O'Connell that some weeks it hits, some weeks it doesn't. There's no consistency there. So I'd probably lean towards other guys myself. I like Mike Evans more. I like DJ Moore more than him. I like DK Metcalf more. So I probably won't get to Adams because I like 3 guys below him that are cheaper.
Yeah, me too. I like Mike Evans more. DK Metcalf's probably my favorite. I think for Adams last week was one of the nut spots, at the Colts.
Yeah.
All year for play volume, for teams passing. This spot, I could have a tough time seeing Denver being able to push them. So yeah, I just I don't really see that game playing out the same way, but it could. Anyways, I have more interest in the other guys you mentioned.
Yeah, Mike Evans murders cover 3, and Carolina plays a lot of cover 3, so I think that could win. They the highest rate of cover 3 in the entire NFL. His lines against cover 3 are really huge this year. I like Evans a lot this week. I just again, a team that has to win. He's been quiet the last 3 of the last 4 weeks. So Godwin's been a little more active last couple weeks, but I really like Evans this week. And we mentioned before, I love DK too. I mean, he's 4th in the NFL in receiving yards the last 8 weeks. He's come on pretty good. He's clearly the number 1 guy over JSN and over Tyler Lockett. Arizona does play a lot of zone. DK's better against man, but I think that it's DK. I think it's just going to work. He had 160 yards last week. I really like DK and Mike Evans this week in this range. The 2 of my favorite plays.
Me too. Mike Evans needs 2 touchdowns to break the franchise record.
There you go. I knew you'd have another incentive for me before we left. Real quick in this range, DJ Moore. Huge game last week in a pretty tough spot. It was a tougher matchup, but 9 for 159, 13 targets. He was really quiet against Green Bay, but that was week 1. I think that's 4 months ago. We can toss that out. Again, another guy he's way better against man. Green Bay plays a lot of zone. You mentioned Jair Alexander's back. If you play Fields, I guess you kind of probably have to play DJ Moore, although you maybe hope Fields just runs and you don't have to worry about it. They don't throw a lot of touchdown passes. I just think I like Evans and Metcalf more this week. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm just not going to play Moore. Mentioned Jair. I think that's a tough matchup for him. He's already, a little banged up. He's been banged up in consecutive games now. Yep. Also, not that this matters too much, but his salary is up to the highest it's ever been. I don't normally love clicking guys when that happens, but just for all those reasons, I don't know. And then if you're going to play Fields, sometimes I get caught in this. Well, you just like got to pair him with DJ Moore. What if DJ Moore catches 5 for 50 and a touchdown? It's going to help Fields. But that's 16 points from DJ Moore at 7K. That's not enough. So I don't think you need to pair him with Fields.
All right. There's a lot of guys in the 7s. We just mentioned there's not a lot of guys in the 6s. There's 2 receivers in the 6s I really like this week, but I'm afraid everybody else is going to like him too. I really like Chris Olave and Calvin Ridley this week. Olave is 6,700 off a really, really quiet week last week. He only had 26 yards. He had 100 yards or a touchdown in 6 straight prior to that. Like he's been really good. It's just like last week I love good receivers off bad weeks. He had a good game against Atlanta last time. Atlanta's pretty good against wide receiver ones, but we mentioned that DJ Moore smoked them last week. I like Olave at 6,700, and then I like Ridley a lot at 65. They just only if Trevor Lawrence plays. I'm not doing this with CJ Beathard, but great matchup. Tennessee's just struggled against wide receiver ones all year. They cannot stop they can stop wide receiver ones. They can't stop outside receivers. I just think the matchup works out really well. Jacksonville has to win. He had 103 yards and 2 touchdowns against Tennessee in week 11. Ridley's been a little bit of disappointment most of the year. I think people have been frustrated with him, but I think this is a week that he's a full go for me.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna wait for that Christian Kirk news.
That matters.
I don't think I'd want to play Ridley if Kirk was active, but if not, and if Trevor Lawrence plays, I think it's a great spot for Ridley.
Agreed about those. I think that the lack of targets and Lawrence playing is what I like about Ridley. But if Kirk plays, that changes that much because it goes from Ridley and Ingram to Ridley, Ingram, and Kirk, and that just it separates it around probably a little too much at the price.
Right. And then the one guy, I think Godwin is okay, but I prefer Evans. The guy I wanted to bring up was Hopkins. He's got an incentive that's probably been tossed around the most, at least that I've seen publicly this week, because he needs 7 receptions to hit one. And I think,
and that's one of those things like you can kind of play towards, right? You can call plays to get him 3 and 4 yard catches. You can actually work that one into the system too.
That's one where you can see them going for. So, if you told me that Hopkins is going to have an 8 catch game here, I don't know, I'd have some interest. I think I would want Will Levis to play. I'm not sure. It just seems like Tannehill might be done at this point, but I guess he wasn't terrible last week. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter.
He returned to practice. Levis returned to practice yesterday is limited, so I think that he's kind of leaning that way. But I think I agree. I think I'd rather have Levis, although it's probably
I don't know. Right?
It's probably pretty close. Levis probably gives Hopkins more of a ceiling, but I'm not sure if you're playing the incentive narrative. I'm not sure the ceiling really matters. I think you're hoping for just a ton of catches.
That's true.
What about in the 5,000s down here? I usually like this range. I don't really like it as much this week. I'm kind of done. I don't think I'm going to go to Garrett Wilson. I just don't want to play any part of that game. He's only 50 yards twice in the last 7 weeks. I do like Jaden Reed, although he's banged up. Christian Watson might be back. This is a situation where you need to get some news on Sunday on the Packers receivers for that, but he was huge last week, the 2 touchdowns. You got Jordan Addison down here. I think Brandon Cooks is interesting. They, cheaper piece of the big implied team total. He had 4 touchdowns the last 6 weeks. Really good matchup against Washington. I think that Cooks is probably my favorite guy in the 5,000s, but I admit I just don't love this range. Do you like anybody in this range a lot? You like what you're gonna say, McLaurin, right?
Yeah, but not a lot. My first answer is going to be I don't like anyone in this range a lot. I think the most popular will end up being Tyler Lockett. I think he's a fine play. We've talked about we like Geno, we like DK, we like that game. I think Lockett makes sense. I like Jaden Reed. You mentioned there's some news to pay attention to, but for me, if he's active, that's good enough. He's clearly their best playmaker. He was great again last week before the injury. And he's just not going to be that popular, especially with the questionable tag. So I don't mind him. And then, McLaurin, you got me a little bit worried with Washington talking about not really, maybe not playing some guys, making sure they lose sort of thing.
I would say more like just check out some quotes and news rather than take them off the board. I think that I just want to make sure that I don't see anything more about that.
Yeah. So I will do that. I think McLaurin is the one guy that I would take a chance on though. He's 54 yards away from his fourth straight 1,000-yard season. So you figure they're going to get him those 54 yards, and maybe he catches a deep one and scores a touchdown. So I don't think nobody's going to play him. So it seems okay.
So I'm just going to go 5,000 and below with this next range. There are a lot of names down here. We don't have to hit every one, but I got a couple. But first of all, I'll go to you first. Like, give me a couple down here. Maybe some in the 4s, some in the 3s. There's a lot of names you can think about this week. You mentioned Christian Kirk is a flat 3,000. I think that's the obvious one if he plays. But who else do you like down here? Because there's a lot of guys, and some of them are going to win some tournaments this week.
Yeah, Smith and Jigba seems okay. I know you mentioned him. I don't know how much more punishment I can take with Rashid Shaheed, Scott. I can't get this guy right, and I've been playing him quite a bit recently. I don't know. Depending on the Saints news, it's the same reason to like any of these Saints. So yeah, maybe on him. I think the Cardinals receivers are okay, Dortch or Wilson. Dortch caught all 7 of his targets last week. He's clearly Kyler's favorite slot man. Michael Wilson has upside. Finally broke out of his little slump and caught a touchdown last week. I think those guys are okay. I don't really want any part of Pop Douglas in that game, and I say that just because, again, he always gets some ownership and has a good projection, and it's the same this week. But I guess you could argue that the weather may make it better for someone like Pop Douglas. I don't know. So I guess he seems okay. The Giants receivers, Wandale or Slayton, decent prices. Who is the guy? 3,700 DJ Chark, maybe with Jonathan Mingo out. We've talked up Mingo quite a bit. Now it's Chark for the same price without Mingo. We know he's a deep threat, only 3,700. So I like that. I don't know. Talk about some more guys.
So real quick before I went to do a quick last math in my head. Last 12 games, Rashid Shaheed has 3 games where he has over 70 yards and a touchdown, and then has 9 games where he has less than 40 yards and no touchdowns. Like, it's like the most insane boomer bust. Like, he either hits a long touchdown, he's a great play, or he's literally useless.
Yeah, it's too bad because I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to complain about it. But they finally gave him an every down role. He's been playing like 85% of snaps. You got Michael Thomas out. You had Taysom Hill out another week. You have Kamara banged up. Olave's constantly banged up. I mean, come on. It just doesn't happen with this guy. Instead, Juwan Johnson gets 12 targets.
Derek Carr's bad, by the way.
Yep, he is.
But down here, before I get to the really low guys, if Christian Watson plays, you're the Packers guy. Can you play him at 4,700?
This injury seems serious. It just,
I feel like if he plays, gonna limit his snaps. Maybe he just plays in a few spots. I worry that he plays like 22 snaps or something.
I think you're right. That's what I would expect. And maybe he can catch a few balls. Yeah, I just don't see him having a ceiling.
Is Demarcus Robinson too good now that he will sit with the starters for the Rams also? Because he's got 2 10-target games the last 4 weeks. He has over 40 yards each of the last 4 weeks. He has 4 touchdowns the last 5 weeks. Like, if he plays, and he was like, he had cut. I think Puka, you mentioned it, says Puka has to break the rookie record that he's coming out of the game. Only reason he's active. Like, DeMarcus could get a ton of targets but my worry is like maybe they like him so much now that he's considered one of the guys and he sits too.
Yeah, maybe. Then maybe could you go down to 3,300 Tutu Atwell? I don't know.
I mean, someone in the Rams is going to catch some passes. I just trying to guess who it is really tough.
You mentioned, it's 29 yards for Puka.
Yeah.
So he's out of there after 29 yards.
Yeah, he's getting like 5 targets the first drive and he's coming out.
Yep. So, I don't know. One of those guys from that game, I think maybe that Davis Allen would be a better bet.
Yeah, that's probably the way I'd go too. I do like the Giants guys. You mentioned them before. Wandale has 16 targets the last 2 weeks. I think he's more of the floor guy. He had 9 targets last week, but Darius Slayton balling out lately. He has 63, 90, and 106 yards the last 2 weeks. He's hit a huge play these last weeks. And he's one of those guys you have to have a huge play, but Tyrod throws them. He throws some deep balls down there. He had 8 targets in week 15, only 9 total last 2 weeks. So if you want I think Slayton's the ceiling big play guy. I think Wandale's the gonna get 8 to 10 targets and have 5 or 6, 7 catches, kind of flory guy. But I think that both works at 4,000 and 4,200. You mentioned DJ Chark. I like that one a lot. 3,700. He has 14 targets the last 2 weeks. One of those weeks was huge. He had 2 touchdowns, 90 yards. The other one he had 18. So I think that you're playing with Bryce Young. He have a lot of targets. It doesn't work, or he hits a couple. But I think that works really well too at 3,700. Tampa Bay is really bad against outside receivers in that game, so it's a good matchup too. And then you've got in LA, you've got Alec Erickson, who was the main guy for Easton Stick last week. 7 for 90 and 8 targets. I think that if you get 8 targets, you get 3,700. It lines up pretty darn well.
Oh yeah, I missed him. Yeah, that does line up pretty well. Quentin Johnson, is he even worth mentioning? I don't know. He got 6 targets last week.
I think I've hit my limit of mentioning Quentin Johnson on the podcast. I think I'm not allowed to anymore because it just hasn't worked.
Especially if Josh Palmer's back. Although that might affect Erickson too. I don't know.
It would. Although I feel like Erickson, they're kind of using him in the slot, just kind of Easton can just hit him quick, and I don't love that at 5,500, but at 3,700, you give me 8 targets. I think that it's tough to not make work, man. Quentin Johnston hasn't topped 30 yards last 3 weeks as playing 60, 58, and 59 snaps.
Yeah, playing 90+% of the snap. I mean, come on, what?
That's impossible. That is a rookie receivers are always tough, but that is a pure out and out bust rookie year right there. He has 1 game over 50 yards.
Brutal for myself too. I fell for it a little bit in best ball.
Sorry, he had a 52 in there. So 2 games over 52, but 1 game over 60 yards. That is, I knew it'd been bad, but man, that's really bad.
Just to piggyback a little bit, the Eagles defense has been terrible. And Tyrod, he's kind of been balling out. Tyrod threw that ball about 60 yards to Slayton.
I couldn't believe it. I saw him
unbelievable.
I'm like, Tyrod still has a gun.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Anyways, it's one of those Giants should have a big game.
Yeah, I think the 2 Giants guys and Chark Erickson 37 are probably my plays I'm going to go to in the games. I agree with you on the other ones above in the 4s. I think those are my targets right there.
Yeah, me too.
Tight end real quick before we jump out of here. You mentioned Trey McBride earlier. He's 6,000 target monster. He's clearly the number 1 guy there. 9, 11, 8, and 7 targets the last 5 weeks. Clearly Kyler loves throwing to him. Evan Ingram in here, 5,400. If Christian Kirk doesn't play, there's going to be no Zay Jones. He's clearly the number 2 guy behind Ridley. Just a lot of targets. He has 60 plus yards in 4 of 5. He has 80 plus yards in 3 of 5. Not only targets, but doing a lot with it. He's 5,400. I think those are the 2 guys, kind of the pricier ones you can play. Under 5,000, there's a million names there. Jake Ferguson's 4,900. A lot of targets with Dallas and a high team total. Darren Waller, we mentioned Philly can't stop anybody right now. He's 4,700. Getting some targets there. Juwan Johnson, 3,600. Huge last week. 8 for 90 and a touchdown, 12 targets. He was the tight end 1. He scored in 3 straight weeks. He's emerging pretty hard here. Yeah,
he is. You hit all the guys I was going to mention, I think. McBride and Evan Ingram up top.
Yeah.
Really good spot for Evan Ingram if Kirk doesn't come back, I think. Ferguson. Yeah, I like Ferguson for tournaments. Gerald Everett, I guess one guy that you didn't mention. I think Gerald Everett, just look at his targets. 8, 8, 8, 9. I would like Keenan Allen and Palmer to be out, but seems okay.
Keenan Allen's not playing.
Right. Sorry. Keenan Allen.
No, I don't know why they would use him.
No. Anyways, there's a bunch of $2,500 tight ends. Do you like any of them?
25. I think I'd go with Davis Allen on the Rams against Niners. He kind of passed the eye test a couple times he has played. Kind of like Johnny Munt with Minnesota at Detroit. He's 3,000, so not min price, but no TJ Hawkinson. He had 7 targets last week, scored a touchdown. I just think give me the super cheap piece of a guy that targeted a lot last week, a team that needs to win indoors. Detroit hasn't stopped the pass the second half of the season. I think Munt and Allen are my 2. Do you have anybody else that you're considering playing in that range?
No, those are the guys I like the best.
Okay.
No, I don't.
And I think they're actually both pretty good plays too. Like they're super cheap. They can get zeros, of course, but I think that Minnesota likes throwing tight ends. They either kind of just throw. He's playing a lot more than the backup. I forget the backup's name, but he's playing a lot more than the other guy. So I think that playing a lot. And you're right about Dave. Like Davis Allen looked good. Like he looked like he might be able to play. And this is a week to kind of showcase someone like that.
Yep, I agree. I don't even really want to mention these guys, but the other 2,500 guys, I see Noah Gray for 2,500.
Kelsey's gonna get his number and get out of there, I think.
Right, and then you got Austin Hooper, 2,500. Harrison Bryant with no Njoku. He's got Jeff Driscoll throwing him the ball. I don't know.
Yeah, you look at. I look real quick. Davis Allen, the one game he played without Higbee, 55 snaps. He was 4 for 50 and a touchdown on 5 targets.
And looks good.
Yeah, and looks good. So Allen or Munt for me. If I go up, I do like a lot of these. I think Juwan Johnson. You could go 3,600 is pretty cheap. The targets are there. Carr obviously likes him, and then Waller, Ferguson, Ingram, McBride. I think all those are pretty good plays too.
Me too.
I would lean. If I had to pick one, I obviously want to pick for people. I'd probably go Ingram with no Kirk, or I'd actually go Darren Waller at 4,700. I think that Tyrod Taylor likes throwing in the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I like McBride and Geno Smith stacks too. I've thought about even McBride and Connor. Like Geno Smith, DK, McBride, and Connor. Just
give me a 45-38 kind of game.
Sure. Yeah. 30. They're in the 30s. Both teams in the 30s.
I joke, but what was last week with Philly? 41-38 or 38-35, whatever it was. It was the same kind of game.
Yeah, just a way to get a little different. People normally don't like to do that.
I am hoping you can find me a fantasy defensive play this week. I have usually I have a couple that I really like. I'm struggling this week. The ones I like are pretty expensive. There's a lot of options here with so many backup quarterbacks playing, but find me a defense here. Who do you like in the cheap range here that we could play and get away with and maybe have a ceiling game?
Kind of like the Bengals for 3K.
Yeah.
Cleveland's resting everybody. It's the Bengals against Jeff Driscoll. So that seems okay. And then I think they'll be popular. I think the most popular is going to be the Chargers at 2,800 up against Blaine Gabbert, I believe, right?
As someone who had to watch Blaine Gabbert start for his favorite team for a while, I can promise you it's not a good thing.
Yeah, so those are the two, I would call them cash game options. And I think those two will be the most popular.
I had both it down as cheaper ones. The one I really like, I actually like the Raiders at 3,300. They've been playing really well up until last week. They did not play well against the Colts, but they've been really rolling. And they get Jared Stidham. They get Jared Stidham at home. 3,300. I don't think anybody's going to play him at that price. And they had 5, 3, and 4 sacks the 3 weeks before that. Yeah, they had 5 sacks against the Patriots, 2 against the Lions, 2 against the Chargers. They were playing pretty well. So I kind of like that one. Max Crosby, they had 3 sacks a week before that. Kind of like that one with the Raiders. Oh, I'm sorry, they did have 4, 3, and 5 sacks. I was right the first time. They had 4 against KC, 3 against the Chargers, 5 against Minnesota. I was looking at the opposite side there, but I just like I like that in a home game against Stidham. I think that works well. Jacksonville against Tennessee might work. 3,200. They had a shutout last week against Carolina with 6 sacks, but they were kind of bad before that. So there you go, Raiders, or I just dropped down on the ones you mentioned. Probably go Cincy against Jeff Driscoll. I think Cincy feels like they want to play hard. At least their coach says they want to play hard. And then you got a lot of expensive options that I think all make sense. If you find yourself with money, like the Cowboys against Washington, I think really works really well. Sam Howell will throw the ball around. He did last week. You've got Tampa against Carolina works. Carolina's a mess right now. The Patriots, you can play the Patriots against the Jets at 3,600. I think that works pretty well too. There's a lot of expensive ones, but I think I'm going to go cheaper and go Raiders or Cincy myself.
Perfect. I have Raiders in the only tournament lineup I made so far for the same reasons.
I like to hear that. Nice.
Yeah, really like the Raiders. Don't think they're going to be that popular because of all the other stuff. And I was a little discouraged by Stidham's performance last week. Don't really, I don't want to write him off after that, but yeah, it makes me like the Raiders this week.
Yeah, I like rooting against the Broncos too, so that makes it even more fun.
Yeah, me too.
The only other one in there, and I think it works well kind of within that range of the Raiders. I think the Saints against Atlanta going against Taylor Heineke, a game they've got to win. Atlanta has to win too, but I think Heineke might throw it around a little more than Desmond Ridder would in terms of making mistakes. So I think that the Saints probably works in there, but I think I prefer the Raiders. And then probably like I said, drop down to Cincy or maybe even the Chargers, like you said.
Yeah.
You could. I'm looking at the uber cheap ones don't really work very well, unless you want to play the Rams against Sam Darnold at 2,600, which is probably not a terrible play either.
Yeah, that's the one that I would have said too. Rams against Sam Darnold if you really need the money.
They're just sitting guys too, so like you don't get the Aaron Donald sacks or anything, but I think Darnold will chuck it around a little bit too, which we like to see with a fantasy defense.
Yeah, there's some interceptions to be had there.
Yeah, that's kind of this week. We mentioned at the start, like this is a very, very tough week. Although there are enough teams that are playing for something, I think you can build lineups knowing guys are going to play, and then maybe intersperse a few cheap backup kind of guys. You mentioned the Jordan Mason type, some of those other running backs that you're going to have some big games. Some of those cheap receivers. I think that's how I'm playing it. Is I'm going kind of the cheap guys with these teams I'm not sure about, and then the expensive guys. My core guys, I'm pretty sure are going to play at least 3 quarters.
Yes, me too. And just be prepared to maybe make a change. We're going to get some news on Saturday or Sunday. That'll probably be significant. So this is a make sure your computer at 9:30 Pacific on Sunday morning, because there's going to be some inactive. I guess 8:30. There can be some inactives. Kenneth Walker matters a lot. Kamara matters a lot. There's a lot of guys that I think those guys will play because they have to win, but. Any kind of surprise inactives will really shift stuff around. Right.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate everybody joining. As always, we appreciate the questions in the chat there. If you please rate or review the podcast, that helps out a lot too. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at Scott Jenstad. Ryan is at Ryan Belongia, Belongia. I promise that is how you pronounce it, even though it doesn't look that way. I promise I'm doing it right. I am doing it right?
Yes.
It only took me multiple years to get it right, but I got there. Again, thanks to everyone for listening. We are at week 18. We actually are doing the playoffs. I don't know, Ryan, if you knew that or not yet, but we are doing the playoff week. So we will not be done for the year. So we'll be doing all 4 playoff rounds. Obviously, there's a lot of people playing a lot of DFS this week, so we figured that was still important to talk about. I think that DFS kind of takes over in the playoffs. I mean, there's no season long. There's some playoff contests, but I think DFS is the focus in there. So we're going to be focusing on that ourselves too. So we'll be still with you for a few more weeks. Again, we appreciate everybody listening all year, and hope you really enjoy week 18. Hope it works out well.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Excited for the playoffs. That'll be fun. Good luck, everybody, week 18.
And good luck to your Packers this week. Big game.
Fingers crossed.
All right, take care, everybody. Have a good one.